you're sitting on your ass, if you're doom scrolling on the damn socials, if you're sitting there going back and forth with your buddy about who should be president or, who's doing bad at work, and you guys are having water bubbler talk, like even after work, and just bitching and complaining about situations, nothing gets done.
Try to live well and prosper. Don't trust your doctor. Ruthless with my wordplay. No, I'm not a shotter, but I got them hits, man, coming straight out the barrio. That's why I'm hip-hop sicario. I like my privacy. I show out every now and then.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo, and I do want to say that I missed y'all greatly. It's been a while since I've been behind the mic. A lot of things going on. So, of course, life happens, so we got to make sure that we address what we need to address, but at the same time, we cannot forget the task at hand, and that is leveling up in any way possible. So, you guys know the particulars, man. Y'all feel free to reach out to me on socials at Instagram, Facebook at Rolo Runs the City, podcast or music. Either or, you get both those. You get me. It is what it is. I'm also on X at Rolo Runs the City, as well as at Rolo Runs the City _ on TikTok. And don't forget all things audio-wise, platforms, Spotify, YouTube Music, whatever. Just feel free to hit up Rolo Runs the City. You will definitely either get the music or the podcast page. Feel free to listen to both. And of course, all things Rolo. Definitely make sure you check out RoloRunsTheCity.com. That is RoloRunsTheCity.com. And of course, we have merch there. We have podcasting. We have music, race events that I do because obviously I run the city and I am back on the pavement, people. So without further ado, we're definitely going to get into this episode. And we're going to talk specifically today about momentum. And momentum doesn't care about your excuses. Okay? The reason why that is so prevalent to today is, regardless of what's going on in your life, there is an objective that needs to be adhered to, and you have to make sure that you follow through no matter what. Okay, a lot of times we get in our own way. Sometimes things get in our way, and that's okay. I mean, life is life, and life is going to say, like they say, life be lifing, and it is what it is. I don't know how nouns have become verbs. Certain adjectives, but it is what it is, right? But with that being said, we want to make sure that we always keep our eye on the prize and the task at hand. At the end of the day, we definitely want to get better in every way possible. So I am trying to do my best to level up in any way that I can. So anytime I'm running into any hiccups, is it discouraging? Absolutely. But consistent movement, regardless whether it's perfect or imperfect, is better than perfect execution once in a while. So you definitely want to make sure that we're doing that, okay? There's a lot of times you look up, it could be weeks, months, for some folks even years, right? It can go by, and people just stop chasing the dream, man. And sometimes they'll just, momentum, man. I mean, momentum is tough. And obviously, I'm going to put this in a metaphorical standpoint when it comes to running. Obviously, you can, build some great momentum and you're on, flat pavement, right? You may get a little hill a little bit. So you'll overcome that hill. What goes up must come down. And of course, you're heading downhill, you're catching great stride, you're like, bam, got it going. Then you hit flat ground again. You run a little bit, you're like, okay, well, I don't have that downhill momentum. However, I'm still going. Then you may face another uphill battle. And that battle on that hill may be a bit more difficult than the last hill you just overcame. But, that's why I appreciate running, because it's a great metaphor for life. Sometimes you're going to have, the wind at your back and just pushing you forward. And a lot of times you're going to have a lot of uphill battles and you may be running against the wind. And at your greatest resistance is when you become your strongest. So we don't get better just running downhill, hauling ass. And then we're like, oh yeah, we're good, we're making a good time. And then once a hill comes, now you're like, okay, well, I got to walk up this hill because I can't attack this hill the way I did when I was coming downhill. That's a great metaphor for life. And that's the reason why I appreciate running. I don't want to say that I love running, but I love what running stands for. So I guess you can say it's a love-hate relationship, right? But you know, it's just one of those things that happens. And like I said, sometimes life happens, man. It could be work, it could be family obligations, and unexpected setbacks. I mean, it happens, right? I know last year I told you guys that I ended up, getting injured, early in the year, and it pretty much kind of derailed my running campaign of 2025, right? But of course, I did everything I needed to do to rehabilitate, to get stronger, so then that way I could come back on 2026 and hit the pavement again and be a bit more strategic on how I do things. At the end of the day, especially when you're an older athlete, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can with caution because it's easier to bounce back at the age of 27, 28 as opposed to 47, 48, okay, or 58 for that matter. So as you get older, you want to train smarter, not harder. And of course, like they always say, you spend the first 40 years killing yourself, right? Like you're doing so much damage in reference to like, nutrition, attrition, if you're not using your muscles properly, or maybe you're overworking them, who knows, right? You figure you have the youth to bounce back. And then as you cross that threshold, when you get into your 40s, you start trying to work a little bit smarter and you spend the rest of that time trying to not only stay alive but thrive and do things a lot better. I mean, I believe it was Muhammad Ali that said, for those people who have, I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but whoever was at the age of 20, thinking at the age of 20, if they still thought at this age of 50 the same way they did in their 20s, but they wasted 30 years of their life. And that's absolutely true. You have to make sure you're always upgrading the mental software consistently. At the end of the day, we're people of habit, creatures of habit. I totally get that, but if you're not growing, you're dying. So we want to make sure that we're always growing, right? But of course, like I said, you have setbacks, and you can't just pretend things didn't happen. You want to acknowledge it, right? Like there's folks that they stopped working out. They were doing a phenomenal job by consistently going to the gym, doing great things at work, anything that builds great momentum that's going to further their career, their health, their finances, their family life. And a lot of times people just forget how they got to where they got to because they get content with the place of where they're at. And next thing you know, that's where the fall off happens. So it's not about not being content where you are. You should always be, happy because you're making great progress. But understand what achieved that happiness, that was making that progress. So when you consistently don't make that progress anymore, that's when you start falling off, and then you're wondering why you're drifting and why you're going through depression or you feel anxious. It's because you're not working in congruent with the person that you're trying to become, because you're starting to meet the person that you're supposed to be. However, you become strangers again because you fall out of the habits that developed that 2.0 version of yourself. And it happens to a lot of people. It happens all the time. It happens to me, So that's what always keeps me grounded and trying to guide myself in the best way possible. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that I stay hungry. I try the best I can to not just peak, but to keep ascending. Because there's a difference between peaking and ascending. Peaking, I mean, you're at the pinnacle. And now you're just trying not to fall off the mountain, right? But when you're ascending, like, there really is no peak, right? So that's one of those things that I always try to register in my mind. Do what you can to continue to ascend, okay? But you got to remember, excuses don't build an empire, right? Goals don't pause because you do, okay? They still got to be achieved, right? And every day you delay, it's another brick not being laid in building the mansion of your life. If you're trying to get closer to God or whatever your creator may be, the universe, Allah, Buddha, the cow, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're staying in tune with something that's bigger than yourself. If that's what you want to do, strive to become the best at that. Okay? Always have a bigger vision. Always believe in something bigger than yourself. Right? If you're avoiding laying down the next brick, you may be hindering your finances, whether it's you're spending too much money, is you got more outgoing flow as opposed to income, then obviously, you're going upside down, you're hustling backwards, right? Just making sure that you're taking care of your health at all costs. Nobody's perfect. People have cheat meals. You can have a cheat meal. Some people have cheat days. I don't recommend for you to have multiple cheat days in the same week or even have cheat weeks because then you just look like a cheater. And looking like a cheater is not going to be one of the best looks for you. So if you're cheating on your diet, then you may want to tighten it up a little bit. We think about that. We think about mental headspace, always making sure that we're in the vibe of not putting garbage into our mental faculties. I mean, always make sure that you're reading something that has some great validity, something that's going to improve, make you better, put you in a great headspace, as well as listening to inspirational material, self-development podcasts. If you like to listen to gangster rap from back in the 90s, I know I do. That's just me. That's what I like. I like gangster rap from back in the 80s, right? I understand at the end of the day it's a form of entertainment. I know it's not real life, but I can appreciate the wordplay. I can appreciate the articulation it takes to bring up a point in a song. I can appreciate the production that goes behind creating such a hit. All aspects of recording. Obviously, I'm a recording artist as well, so I can actually appreciate things of that nature, how things can come together to actually put out a solid product that people will enjoy. Some folks will like it, some won't. That's okay. To each his or her own, right? But I truly believe that when you put yourself in a great mental headspace, you can achieve anything that you want to achieve. You just cannot you got to make sure that you're not getting derailed by something that's not going to push you toward your mission. I ran into a situation this past week with my daughter. She's home for summer break, and she was just doom scrolling on her phone. And she has things that need to get done at home, and she's neglecting it. And I don't believe she's neglecting it because she's lazy. She's not a lazy girl. Nowadays, many people get sidetracked, and a lot of people have vices, and their vices isn't strictly alcohol or smoking or porn or anything of that nature, right? But sometimes it could just be social media. Social media is one of the biggest vices that a lot of our Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are actually consuming the most, right? A lot of folks, too much consumption of food. You eat food to live. Some people live to eat. It is what it is, right? But it takes a lot to try to identify this. So I see her doom scrolling, and I said, "Hey, bud," I said, "we got some stuff we got to do." So she had laid in her bed probably for about a good 2 weeks because she's had folded clothes, mind you. Like her bed's not dirty. She's got folded clothes from when she did laundry. She just never put anything up. And every time she always gets sidetracked, ends up doing something else. So I went ahead and told her, okay, we're going to take care of some stuff. Now, her closet is just a monster. It's crazy, everything that's going on there, but it is what it is, right? So I put clothes on top of her bed and everything. She gets frustrated. She's like, "Dad, what are you doing? Now this is becoming a mess." I was like, "Well, we didn't put away these clothes. They need to get put up. You need to clean this closet anyway because I know there's a donation pile you want to get done and you want to straighten out some stuff, take some stuff back to school." I said, "We're going to do that today." And it literally took maybe I'm going to say probably about 2.5 hours to get this stuff done. And the crazy thing is, she looked at it as if it were some massive task. It's not a massive task. It just takes putting down the device and actually putting foot to ass to make sure she gets her task done. And we ended up doing it. She was very ecstatic about getting it done. Very grateful, which I appreciate. But I let her know that you'll be able to do anything that you want to do, but sometimes you have to understand what's hindering your progress. You have to put that thing to the side and you have to lock in. That's what the problem is with many people nowadays. They're not able to actually make their progress because they're consistently feeding into the dopamine hits of, oh, I got a notification. Oh, look, I got likes. Oh, I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna look at that, as opposed to getting in the work that needs to be put in, so then that way they can further their mission as opposed to getting sidetracked on the side missions, right? Like, I'm a video game dude. I used to be in the GTA and all that, and people be like, oh, hey, man, why aren't you playing the side missions, man? Side missions are fun and all this other stuff. It's like, dude, because my main goal is to beat the game. Right? Like, I'm not here for the side missions, man. I'm trying to, take out the boss. So then next thing you know, I got X amount of dollars in my bank account. If I want to play around and act like a fool and do some crazy stuff in the game, I got enough capital to do that. Because obviously when you beat the game, they give you X amount of dollars. And it's kind of like an open world concept where it's like The Sims of crime, I guess, right? But for the most part, when I finish with the main mission anyway, I'm kind of done with the game. But I'm just saying, for example, man, too many people are so consumed on their side missions that they're doing all these side missions and they're not following the storyline the way they need to, so then that way they can complete their objectives and get to where they want to get to in life. And they think, oh, well, as long as I'm not getting to where I'm at in life, well, I'll go ahead. I have a purpose to fulfill. I'm sorry, I'm a Christian. I firmly believe if you don't execute on your task and you think that you're going to remain alive because God put you here to do something and you haven't done it yet, and He's working on your time, I don't think so. He's going to be like, well, you're not doing anything with your life. It's time for you to go. That's the way I absolutely feel. So I always try to do my best to put my best foot forward. So then that way I'm doing everything in the light of being a good Christian, being a good husband, being a great dad, and just being a great steward for my community. But anyway, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to get sidetracked there, but I truly believe that whenever you're trying to get things done, you're trying to measure yourself up the way you're supposed to, then I think that you could really address a lot of things. But if you don't recognize that there's an issue, then you'll never address it. We always talk about that. But anyway, moving on, right? A lot of people think that timing has to be perfect, that they have to have the perfect situation, so then that way they can get started. No, you start ugly, right? I mean, write the song, man. If the song sounds like trash, it's okay. No big deal, right? Like, we could always go back to the drawing board, but at least we're starting, we're getting somewhere, okay? Get down that first 100 words, man, of the genesis of that book you're trying to create. At the end of the day, even if it's 10 words, a sentence, maybe a paragraph, whatever, right? If you have a huge agenda in reference to maybe wanting to get a book done, like, these are the things that you got to do, right? And obviously it goes into, things deeper than that. You don't necessarily have to try to be an artist or an author or a songwriter or anything like that, but it's just about starting ugly, man. Even if you're trying to get your health back and you're like, man, I want to be at my fighting weight, man. I want to be the way I was, you want to reach back into the glory days of when you were in high school or when you were in college or whatever, and you notice that it's like, man, I used to weigh 165 pounds and now I weigh about 255, and it's not muscle, and I just kind of got away from myself. And there's a lot of people that are actually going through that. They can actually go back to the genesis of what they were. It just, you didn't get there in a day, so you can't get frustrated if you're not getting back to your fighting weight in a day, because the same effort that it took, that you didn't realize it took effort to get that big, that's going to take 2-3 times the effort to get back to your original status. Okay, like, I'm just saying, for that example, that's about a good 70-75 pounds, right? I'm just saying, like, these are things that people go through, so you have to really lock in on that. Okay, if that weight, man, go on a run. All the compounding effort is in your favor. You just have to execute on it. End of story. Right? Okay? But momentum is absolutely earned daily. You guys know that. It's earned daily, okay? One workout creates momentum, okay? One business task creates momentum. One decision consistently over and over changes the game for anybody who's willing to change, okay? If you're sitting on your ass, if you're doom scrolling on the damn socials, if you're sitting there going back and forth with your buddy about who should be president, or who's doing bad at work, and you guys are having water bubbler talk like even after work and just bitching and complaining about situations, nothing gets done. So you want to make sure that you do what needs to get done, okay? There's no such thing as a perfect time, and there's no permission needed for you to get started, okay? So momentum is rewarded by action. I want you guys to always remember that, okay? As for me, like I said, we all go through our things, and I've definitely been through mine. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've been taking on, and part of it's because I don't say no, and sometimes maybe I should say no. But at the end of the day, if people look at you as a problem solver, then you make sure you solve the problem. There's a difference between people taking advantage of a situation and don't want to do anything, and people that absolutely need assistance on something getting done. So, of course, you want to make sure that you're a good judgment on that, make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. But at the end of the day, one thing that people do respect is the work that you put in. I've never seen a lazy man get celebrated, okay? And people say, oh, well, I want recognition, I want this, I want that. First of all, like, you got to get away from being self-centered, okay? The thing that I would love to get recognized for is to see how many people that I can help. And it ain't about me, because they're the reasons why I'm able to actually bring that agenda forward. Because my thing is, I want to help as many people as I can help in any capacity, any way, whether if it's financially or even with my time. Whatever I'm able to do, that's what I want to execute on. I always say it all the time. I want to leave this earth better than I found it, okay? I was a kid that grew up in Farragut projects in Brooklyn, Red Hook, all that crap, okay? Relocated to Lawrence, Massachusetts, not the greatest place in the world, still being subjected to public housing, okay? So I wouldn't say that I ended up, pretty much was born with a spoon in my mouth, but that doesn't give me an excuse to just quit on life or just accept things as is, I'm just a part of the status quo, like it is what it is, like, just another statistic, very similar to the situation that I was born into. That's how I want to carry my life. And unfortunately, a lot of people go through that. It's called generational poverty. I always say to myself, I suffered a lot as a kid, so my children wouldn't have to. And as a dad, that is the most important job that I've ever had in my life. Everything else comes second. Of course, I keep my family in high regards right next to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and everything else is just secondary. So, I'm hoping people carry themselves the same way. And if they don't, then do the best that you can to gear yourself to what's important to you. At the end of the day, and COVID proved this when we had COVID back in 2020. Didn't matter how much money you made. It did not matter what your status was, your socioeconomic class. It didn't matter, because guess what? We were all fighting to try to get toilet paper. Toilet paper, right? Toilet paper, right? You had millionaires and you had billionaires trying to figure out how they were going to get their toilet paper. Same problems that the other 99% was having, right? At that point, you look at it, you're like, man, we all have the same problems at this point. It is what it is. So just be a person of virtue. Do what needs to get done. And be the best version of you. Well, anyway, that's my time this week. I do apologize for the hiatus, but I'm back now. Like I said, man, feel free to hit me up on the socials. Y'all do your thing. And I appreciate everybody, man. And like I said, be the GOAT, right? Be the GOAT. Never a sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Take care. Godspeed. Have a good one. See you next week.